السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على نبيه الذي اصطفى نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اهتدى بهداه. أما بعد، أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. As we know that Ramadan is going to start very soon here in the United States, inshallah, somewhere between April 13th and 14th. So we would like to talk about some, FAQs, frequently asked questions about Ramadan, what breaks the fast, what nullifies the fast, what makes an individual qualified to fast. So we will try to summarize to the best of our ability. But these questions and answers are just general guidelines, and all person or personal or individual issues should be brought to a mufti or a scholar to then assess the impact on your fast. First of all, it is very necessary nowadays, something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, is to follow a traditional path of understanding the sacred text, which is called a madhab. So somebody would say, what is the proof? In Sahih Bukhari, in the book which is holding on to the Quran and Sunnah, which is book 97 of Sahih Bukhari, in chapter 3 of that book, which is book number 97, chapter 3, in the beginning, in all of the Arabic versions, it says, وَجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. This verse of surah in the Quran, which is, make us a leader or imam of the people who are pious. So one of the tabi'een, who is the student of the Sahaba, he says, قَالَ أَئِمَّةً نَقْتَدِي بِمَنْ قَبْلِنَا. Make us imams so we can what? Follow the imams before us, and people take us as imams after us, so we have a continuous chain of knowledge to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is not a foreign concept. Unfortunately, nowadays people disregard the traditional madhahib, and that is a fatal mistake. So according to the madhab of Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man bin Thabit al-Kufi, which is Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, we will discuss the actions because majority of the world is following that madhab. And if a country does not follow that madhab popularly, their court systems and their judicial systems generally tend to follow the madhab of the great Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. So the first question is, who is obligated to fast? All healthy, resident, sane, and males and females who have reached puberty are obligated to fast in the month of Ramadan. It is an obligation, and each individual needs to make a niyyah either every night at time of suhoor or one niyyah in the beginning of the month. That would suffice, that I'm doing an act of obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who is exempted from fasting is the person who is sick or whose sickness is such that if he will fast, his sickness will become much worse. That person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, which is verse 184 of chapter 2, that if somebody was traveling and he was sick or not well, he can fast other days. Now, if somebody has a permanent sickness, then of course he has to pay what they call fidya, and that is a longer discussion. We will not discuss that here, inshallah. We'll generally touch it. And a traveler is a person who becomes a traveler before subah sadiq, meaning when it is actually the time of Fajr, and he intends or travels outside of 55 miles of his hometown, and he intends to stay up to 14 days in a town. So let's say if I leave Salt Lake City, Utah, and I go outside of Salt Lake City 55 miles, and that is based on Quran and Sunnah, and then I go only for 13 days or up to 14 days for travel, under that period I will be considered a traveler and I don't have to fast, right? Now, if somebody intends to stay beyond 14 days, then he takes the ruling of a resident of that city where he has traveled to, and he needs to fast. Anybody who is below puberty, they are not obligated to fast, but it is generally a good idea to encourage them to try to fast, whenever they can, however they can, so they can actually feel the spirituality and participate in a family tradition and obligation also. Of course, people who are very old and physically unable to fast, right? They will be required, of course, to make up the fast if their weakness is because of a disease or a problem, and so forth. And if they cannot, as you know, then they can make compensation or fidya, as they say. Now, what is the true time of Fajr? That is a controversial issue. People make it a controversial issue. It's not really controversial. If you look in your apps in your iPhone or Android phones, in the Salah app, you will see that there is a custom option for timings. And in the custom option, if you set your Fajr to 18 degrees, then you are safe. If you keep it at 15 degrees, you might actually miss the actual time of not eating before Fajr. So we recommend that everybody sets their times at home at 18 degrees in their apps, so they can actually be informed of Fajr on the correct time. And before that, you can eat. And then as soon as you hear the adhan, even you hear of Allahu Akbar, like even if you say Allahu Akbar, so the first of Allahu Akbar, you need to stop eating. There's no such thing that the azan is going on and I'm eating and swallowing food and drinking and then continuing, and then after the azan ends, I stop. No, that is not right. We should basically stop immediately as soon as we hear the adhan, insha'Allah ta'ala. Now, eating suhoor or suhoor in Arabic, which is correct, in Urdu suhoor or sahri, it is actually a sunnah. And if a person misses that, he still needs to fast, but he will not get the reward of course, eating that pre-dawn meal that gives us strength and barakah throughout the day. Now, what are the things that basically nullify a fast or things that do not nullify a fast? I will go into a very quick list, and then we will go discuss some medical things that are very common and very frequently asked. The things that nullify the fast is if somebody deliberately eats or drinks, or if somebody accidentally eats and swallows, and then he realizes that he has eaten, right? Now, if somebody is in the company of that person, if he sees that person picking up the jug to drink water or trying to eat food because of forgetfulness, it is his job to tell that person, hey, stop, you're fasting, right? Not to just watch him eat and swallow and then say, oops, sorry, your fast is gone. So if a person swallows something inadvertently and it's, before, like let's say if he remembers just about he's touching his food, he can spit it out. But if he swallows it, then his fast is invalid. He needs to make it up. Of course, swallowing toothpaste and mouthwash, right, also will break a person's fast. Swallowing blood from your gums, and of course, toothpaste and mouthwash that dominates the taste of the saliva, that will also invalidate a person's fast. Now, if a person swallows a pebble or swallows something which is a chickpea size or something smaller than that, a particle, and he swallows it and he feels it going in his cavity, which is the stomach, then his fast is invalidated, obviously. If a person, of course, also puts nasal spray and that nasal spray passes through his throat and he swallows it and he feels the bitterness of that while he's swallowing it, that will invalidate his fast. If a person is asthmatic and he takes his inhaler, right, then in that case his fast will be invalid. Of course, some of the ulama, you will hear from other parts of the world, they will say, no, it doesn't invalidate that, but that is incorrect because the drug will actually make it to your cavity, and anything that enters the human cavity from its usual paths, min manafidhiha al-ma'luma aw al-mu'tada, they say in Arabic, that from all of the paths that lead into cavities, which are normal, natural paths of human bodies, then in that case, the fast will be invalidated. So for asthmatic people, it is better to take their inhaler, especially if it's a steroid inhaler at the time of suhoor, inshallah, before. This way, there's no need for that during the day. Of course, a person who smokes deliberately, his fast is invalid, or vapes or anything of that nature, or he is in a company of somebody who's vaping and then he swallows that smoke, that also will invalidate a person's fast. Having intimacy with a person's spouse, deliberately, of course, or by mistake, and completing that process will obviously invalidate the fast and also incur what they call kafara, which is, a monetary amount, feeding the poor. If they can, then the least amount of that is fasting 2 months without interruption. A person who pleasures himself, right? If he's single and he pleasures himself to the point that he completes his self-pleasuring, in that case, his fast is also invalid, and he will, of course, get a sin for doing that during the month of fasting. Now, vomiting deliberately, inducing vomiting by putting your finger inside your throat and vomiting, and then, of course, that will invalidate the fast. Now, if a person is overwhelmed and inadvertently vomits, then that will not invalidate the fast, as long as if the vomit comes and he has a mouthful and then he swallows it back again, try to stop it, that will invalidate the fast. Of course, for our female listeners, their normal monthly cycle, of course, also disrupts the fasting, and they can make it up on a different, time. Endoscopy, which is something where they insert a probe through your stomach, through your mouth, through your throat, and it goes in your stomach with a camera, with lubricants that are, medical, ointments that allow the, insertion inside the stomach, will also invalidate the fast. Things that don't break the fast, of course, right? Eating or drinking if a person forgets that he's fasting. I remember that I said that if you know you're fasting, and you deliberately eat or forgetfully eat and you know you're fasting, then it is invalid. But if a person forgets that he's fasting and he thinks no, it's not Ramadan. He wakes up in the morning and he thinks it's a normal day, it's not Ramadan. And he sips water, and then all of a sudden later he realizes, oh, I'm fasting. And then in that case, he should be fine. Of course, if a person swallows his own saliva, of course, that is something that is normal, that does not break your fast. Eardrops, according to Mufti Rafi Uthmani of Pakistan, does not, break your fast, according to the Hanafi ruling. Eye drops and contact lenses do not break a fast. Sniffing up mucus, or if it descends like balgham, if it, goes inside your throat, it does not break your fast. Unintentionally being exposed to smoke. Let's say if you're walking in the supermarket or at your work and some guy is vaping or some guy is smoking or there is fire and you just pass through that, inshallah, that shouldn't be an issue. Of course, showing compassion to your spouse by, caressing and what they call qubla, kissing them on the cheek does not break the fast. But if it starts to move into a direction of full intimacy, then that can be a problem. Involuntary nocturnal emission. If a person is young and single, and even if he's married and they're sleeping and they wake up in the morning and they find that there is nocturnal emission that took place, that will not invalidate a person's fast. Of course, starting the fast while a person is in the state of impurity. Let's say if a person had nocturnal emission and then he misses the time of suhoor and then he wakes up after fajr because he was oversleeping, that will not invalidate his fast. Now, going for blood tests, of course, will not invalidate the fast. Taking a vaccine or injections will not invalidate the fast, even if the injections have some nutritious ingredients, like if they have something which is called an excipient or a vehicle. These are technical terms. I'm a person who has a scientific background. So these things are fillers that they put in injections so the body can absorb them better. So injections of any type, intramuscular or intravenous, will not invalidate a person's fast. Tooth extractions are, of course, not going to invalidate a fast as long as a person does not swallow blood, or going to the dentist for a normal cleaning is risky. It will not invalidate the fast in itself, but if you swallow the washings from the dentist and you swallow some of that water or the chemicals they put in your mouth and you swallow it, then of course it will invalidate the fast. And then CPAP machines, which are people who are they have sleep apnea at night. They put those machines and they breathe through them to sleep. That does not invalidate the fast. Of course, miswak does not invalidate the fast as long as a person does not swallow bits and pieces of the miswak. Vomiting unintentionally, right, also does not break the fast. Swimming and submerging and taking a shower does not, break the fast. A person who is backbiting, of course, he incurs a sin, but that does not, of course, break his fast. What are the other things that we will discuss that we should do? We should try to add 5 minutes to the time of Maghrib, because sometimes it appears the sun has set, but there is also issues with refraction and light. So we should add that 5 minutes just to be safe. Of course, some medical things in the time of COVID-19, if a person has been infected and exposed to COVID-19 and he is experiencing fever and malaise and fatigue, obviously does not need to fast. He needs to recover fully, and then after that, either he can make up or continue fasting in Ramadan, or make the missing days, after Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala, right? Taking showers, as I said, no problem. Having perfume and fragrance that a person applies on himself is fine. But according to the Shafi'is, Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, he said that a person who tries to wipe his bad breath because of fasting, it is something that is not preferred, because that smell that comes out of the worship of Allah is something that we get a reward on. But that is Imam Shafi'i's opinion. Of course, if a person puts perfume on because he's going to work and he doesn't want to turn people off from Muslims, that inshallah is fine. Eardrops, as we said, that Mufti Rafi Uthmani hafidhahullah, he said that the eardrops do not break the fast. Similarly, eye drops and contact lenses do not break the fast. Having what they call kuhul, which is the black thing for beauty that women and people in some countries, even males, do, which is called surma in Urdu, is not something that invalidate the fast. Using lip balm, right? There is no evidence that it suggests that it basically breaks the fast, as long as a person does not lick his lip balm and then mix it with his saliva, of course, and swallow big chunks and amounts of it. That could be detrimental. Having, dental work at a dentist's office generally does not in itself break the fast, but of course all the other risky activities around it, like washing and rinsing your mouth while you're laying in the dentist chair, and the water seeping in and slipping in your cavity, which is the stomach here, will of course be a problem. Injections, we said, even if they are nutritious or if they are non-nutritious, or they're a mix of nutritious and some drug candidate, then those do not break the fast. Intramuscular, subcutaneous under the skin, or intravenous, which is in the veins, that does not break the fast. Of course, insulin, people who take insulin injections, they should be worry-free that it does not break the fast. But the risk is, if you take an insulin injection while a person is hungry and fasting, he might go into hypoglycemic shock. So he has to talk to his doctor and figure out what is the best method and time to take those injections, because we as scholars cannot recommend exact timings. Those are medical decisions that a person's doctor needs to work with him on. If a person, for instance, goes for ultrasound, that does not break a fast. Let's say if a person has something inserted in their cavity, like females in their private parts for any kind of medical examinations, they do not generally break the fast. Now, cupping does not break the fast, but it is better to avoid cupping, because the blood that comes out during cupping can make a person very weak, and it will make him not be able to continue the fast. People who are trying to quit smoking and they place nicotine patches on their skin, that does not break the fast. Angiography does not break the fast. Insertion of a urine catheter does not break a fast. Local anesthetic does not break a fast. Acupuncture, acupressure does not break a fast. Having an IV cannula or an atrial line, right? These things, they in itself do not invalidate the fast, but we have to look at the medical condition. Of course, tissue biopsies do not break a fast. Lumbar punctures do not break a fast. Blood donations generally do not break the fast, but it is advised not to do them because they're 500 mils of a person's blood, and they can cause weakness and a person can pass out, inshallah. Intraoral injections do not break the fast. Sublingual, buccal, and labial administration of medication will not invalidate the fast, but if the medication passes through the throat and is swallowed, then that can be a problem. So inshallah, these are the things that we will discuss. Also, for our female listeners, the insertion of tampons does not actually these things may break the fast, so it's better to stay away from them, because according to the Shafi'i fiqh, it does, anything that is inserted like a suppository, anything in any cavity of the body can invalidate a person's fast. The earlier Hanafi fuqaha, they used to say that any medicine and object that is inserted in front of the female organ would break the fast, right? However, only the fast which has been broken will need to be made up, and no kafara is necessary, so it's better to stay away from those things. So inshallah, these are some of the things that we discussed and we wanted to discuss in a very small session. Obviously, these are very long and detailed subjects. So what we would need to do is, inshallah, if you have any questions, please reach out and ask us or ask a mufti around you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to continue fasting and gaining reward in this beautiful and blessed month of Ramadan. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.